They flagged her at the gate like she was just another tired traveler, a quiet woman in civilian clothes, gray hair tucked under a baseball cap, carrying a weathered canvas satchel. Sergeant Maddox didn't even look at her twice until he opened the bag. One by one, he dumped the contents across the security table, an old paperback, a cracked compass, a tin of mints. Then something slid out and spun across the concrete. Steel, heavy, engraved, a sidearm, .50 caliber, military issue but not standard. Custom, polished, and unmistakable. Silence hit the room like a switch. An older MP at the back whispered, That belonged to Commander Ray Voss. Deep Recon, KIA Fallujah. Except she wasn't dead. She stepped forward, picked it up without a word, checked the chamber with muscle memory that sent chills down every spine in that room. And just like that, every soldier in the checkpoint stood straighter. Didn't know who she was yet, but their instincts did. Where in the world are you watching this from today? If this moment moved you, consider subscribing for more true stories that history forgot, but we won't. They flagged her without hesitation the moment she stepped into the screening zone. She looked like any other tired contractor, slim frame, ash blonde hair tied back, a faded olive jacket hanging off her shoulders like she'd lived in it for years. She carried a dull green satchel with worn stitching, her boots scuffed from what looked like miles of desert. To most in the room, she was just another middle-aged woman with a clearance badge and somewhere to be. But something in the way she moved, too quiet, too calculated, made the air around her feel wrong. At Langford Command Base, wrong things didn't go unnoticed for long. The morning shift was already rolling. Techs walked past balancing coffee cups and laptops. Young recruits barked at each other over drills. And two high-ranking advisors argued about data in front of a COEM screen. The checkpoint area was alive with routine. That's when she appeared. The base's security lead, Captain Walker, noticed her instantly, not because she was causing trouble, but because her eyes never wandered. They locked on doors, exits, sightlines. She knew the layout. That wasn't something most visitors knew. Hey, Walker called out, stepping around the metal detector. ID and satchel up front. His tone wasn't hostile, just bored and loud, like a man used to being obeyed. She handed her ID wordlessly. Just a name, Elise Marlowe. No rank, no branch. Clearance, Delta Red. Most guards had never even seen that level before. Walker frowned. Delta Red? That's reserved for Special Joint Command. He looked her up and down with a smirk. You don't exactly scream Tier 1. Then he waved to his junior officer. Pull her aside. Random check. The buzz of conversation dulled as she was led toward the secondary inspection zone. Curious eyes followed. Some chuckled. Others whispered. But Elise remained still, calm, hands loosely folded in front of her. It wasn't obedience, it was patience. Captain Walker approached again, clearly enjoying the little audience. What brings you to Langford? He asked, grabbing her satchel. Consulting for ghosts? She didn't answer. He unzipped the bag and flipped it upside down. The contents fell hard onto the cold concrete. A notebook filled with faded writing, a folded map, a metal compass, a cloth-wrapped photo frame, and a few unremarkable personal items. Then something slid out with a quiet clang, a glint of gold, heavy, sleek, spinning on the floor before it slowed to a stop. Silence gripped the room. It was a handgun. But not just any, a Desert Eagle, 50 AE, custom-forged, polished barrel. Engraved along the slide, no light without shadows. Walker stepped back instinctively. Where the hell did you get that? Across the room, Chief Warrant Officer Briggs dropped his coffee. His hands trembled. That's not possible, he muttered. That's Marlowe's gun. I saw it buried. An old intelligence officer near the scanner whispered, Elise Marlowe's dead. Killed in the Bahrain extraction. Confirmed body. No, said Briggs, his eyes locked on Elise. Nobody ever found her. Just the wreckage, and that weapon. She stepped forward and picked it up without hesitation, checking the chamber, then holstering it beneath her jacket in one fluid motion. Not flashy, not aggressive, just practiced. Lethal familiarity. Every veteran in the room felt it in their bones. Walker's voice cracked. Who the hell are you? She looked at him, calm and steady. I'm the reason your base hasn't burned to the ground. Yet. At that moment, the far doors opened. General Marcus Lang strode in with two advisors at his side. His eyes landed on Elise. He stopped cold. He saluted. Commander Marlowe, he said. Welcome back. Walker's knees nearly buckled. Commander? But she... Lang didn't even glance at him. You just tried to shake down the only remaining operator from Phantom Protocol. The same operator who disappeared after preventing a nuclear cascade in Tehran. His voice turned cold. The woman whose file is sealed under 4 levels of presidential lockout. The crowd stood frozen, and in that moment, nobody moved unless she let them. General Meredith Langford stepped into the room like a winter wind. Sharp, cold, undeniable. Her steel gray hair was tightly knotted, and her uniform bore no unnecessary decoration. Only medals earned, not given. Eyes snapped to her as she walked. Calm, deliberate, across the marble floor toward the chaos still settling around the mysterious woman who just revealed a legendary weapon. To everyone's shock, General Langford dropped to one knee beside her. She began quietly collecting the scattered belongings. A journal, a photo, a worn patch. Then she lifted the golden Desert Eagle with both hands. The last time I saw this weapon, Langford said, her voice echoing across the stunned room. It was in the hands of Major Eleanor Cross, while she was bleeding from 4 gunshot wounds, saving 38 hostages inside the U.S. consulate in Tangier. She held the gun for a moment longer before handing it to the woman with reverence. Your mission report is 5 years late, Major. The woman, Alessandra Eleanor Cross, allowed herself the faintest smile. I got held up, General. Captain Aaron Halverson stood in stunned silence, color draining from his face. Every soldier in the room stood ramrod straight. A forest of salutes now filled the air, for the ghost who had walked back into their world. Then General Langford, known for being colder than steel and more precise than any machine, did the unthinkable. She embraced Eleanor Cross. Welcome home, Ellie, she whispered. We mourned you. Gasps were audible. Langford had never broken protocol, not once in 3 decades. Lieutenant Maya Kaderi stepped forward hesitantly, carefully collecting the rest of Eleanor's items. Ma'am, she said softly, handing over a neatly folded jacket. It's an honor. Eleanor nodded, then turned toward the assembled room. At ease, she said quietly, but what happened here only stays here. The posture in the room loosened slightly, but reverence lingered. These weren't soldiers anymore. They were witnesses to a living legend. Whispers of the Tangier Phantom had bounced through intelligence circles for years. Some said it was a full spec ops team under heavy cover. Others claimed it was a drone-assisted ghost op. But the truth, that one woman pulled it off alone, had always been dismissed as myth. Sergeant Paul Lovett approached, his eyes red-rimmed, voice trembling. Major Cross, my nephew. He was one of the embassy staff. You saved him. Eleanor's eyes softened even for the first time. How is he? She asked. Married now, 2 kids. Named his son after you, well, after your code name. Little Phantom Lovett, he smiled through the emotion. We never knew your real name until now. A rare warmth passed across Eleanor's face. Tell him, she said. The Phantom sends her regards. General Langford placed a firm hand on Eleanor's shoulder. You returned not a moment too soon. The threat you warned us about 5 years ago. It's real. And it's here. Eleanor's face changed, back to steel. That's why I came back. To the side, Captain Halverson tried to shrink into the walls, watching his career collapse around him. When Eleanor glanced his way, he flinched. Langford turned to the room, her voice now iron. This woman has sacrificed more for this country than anyone in this building. Her name, her service, her pain, all classified. And you, she pointed to Halverson, will report to my office at 800 for reassignment. The captain looked like he'd been shot. Everyone in the building knew what that meant. A lonely radar post in the Aleutian Islands, or worse, DC paperwork hell. But then Eleanor did something unexpected. She stepped forward. Brigadier General Margaret Maggie. Delaney stepped through the checkpoint like a thunderstorm, measured, heavy and full of electricity. Her salt and pepper hair was pulled into a no-nonsense bun, her uniform crisp, her every step echoing decades of command. She turned briefly toward Captain Wade Halston. The young officer, whose overzealous security sweep had triggered this entire scene. The captain was doing his job, she said to no one in particular. Then her eyes found his, cool, unreadable. But next time, she said quietly, remember, respect costs nothing. Halston swallowed hard. His career, once meteoric, now trembled on a ledge. He nodded without a word. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Dana Kessler approached with the duffel bag, once mocked, now handled like a sacred artifact. She handed it back to the woman in the center of this storm. Major Evelyn Shaw nodded her thanks, her voice low but unwavering. Lieutenant, I could use someone with your attention to detail. After your shift, report to General Clara Morrigan's office. 5 years is a long time, Evelyn said, eyes scanning the reinforced halls. I started to think the warnings I sent got buried. Delaney gave a tired smile. Never buried, just inconvenient. Politics, budgets, you know how the wind shifts. Some things never change, Evelyn said, her hand brushing the sidearm at her hip. The legendary sidearm. The elevator hummed as it carried them down, far below the known levels of the base. Down to sub-level 9, where no visitor passes ever reached. Once inside the command chamber, the mask dropped. Delaney exhaled, slow and controlled. We really thought you were gone, Evie. After Morocco, when your signal cut out. The extraction team only found blood. Your blood. Evelyn looked her dead in the eye. That was the idea. I needed everyone to believe I was out. Especially our own. The leak was internal. The elevator dinged softly. And then reality shifted. Before them lay Raven Rock's black room, a vast, secure nerve center pulsing with data. Real-time drone feeds, intercepted signals, and global movement maps blinked on the walls. Uniformed personnel manned consoles with surgical focus. And then, silence. One by one they turned. Conversations froze mid-sentence. A mug hit the floor. Colonel James Jim Rourke, head of Special Threat Response, stared at her like a ghost. Shaw, he whispered. The hell? You're alive? Evelyn gave him the ghost of a grin. In the flesh, Colonel. You spill your coffee for all your old flames? Rourke flushed, chuckling nervously. Just the ones I thought were dead. General Delaney waved Evelyn toward a sealed chamber, adjacent to the operations floor. Once inside, she activated manual security. No cameras, no mics. Just a pen, paper, and silence. Old school, she said. Some conversations can't live on a server. Evelyn nodded, eyes narrowing. Let's talk. The group I've been tracking calls themselves Iron Rain, Evelyn Shaw said, sliding a small hard drive across the table between them. Ironically poetic, given the name of this facility. General Margaret Delaney leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. A splinter cell? In a way, Evelyn replied. They're made up of former military officers, intelligence analysts, even ex-government cabinet members, not just from here, but globally. Different flags. Same mission. Their unifying belief is that democracy and sovereign nations are outdated concepts. Too slow, too soft. They want a new world order, led by what they call the competent few. Delaney gave a dry snort, though her face stayed grave. Sounds like your average flavor of power-drunk lunatics. They'd be easier to deal with if they were, Evelyn said, stone-faced. They're well-funded, well-placed. They've embedded agents in defense departments, intel agencies, even inside executive circles. And they're 72 hours away from launching something they call Operation Shattered Mirror. Delaney sat back, her chair creaking under the weight of her sudden realization. That's why you surfaced now, after 5 years in deep cover? Evelyn nodded. Sending intel through secure channels is useless now. Too many leaks. I couldn't risk the data getting intercepted, or worse, buried. She tapped the drive between them with her index finger. Everything I've collected, mission details, internal documents, names, including members sitting in some of the highest chairs in our own government. Delaney stared at the drive like it might detonate. How high are we talking? Cabinet level, Evelyn answered bluntly. Maybe even higher. The general's jaw clenched. That explains the pushback I got when I kept trying to reopen the Gibraltar investigation, all those sudden budget cuts, the stonewalling. They didn't just want you gone, they needed you gone. And they nearly succeeded, Evelyn replied. But the failed hit in Tangier gave me exactly what I needed, a clean disappearance. Let them think I was dead while I dug deeper. Delaney's eyes sharpened. So why now? Because someone posing as one of them, using the credentials they arranged, is set to arrive at Raven Rock today, Evelyn said. A woman with full clearance to run diagnostics on Norsec, the orbital defense AI system. Delaney froze. That's what they're after. Norse. Evelyn nodded. The United States Autonomous Orbital Defense platform with global strike capabilities. You control Norsec, you control the balance of power, and Iron Rain plans to use it to enforce their twisted version of peace. And you're going to impersonate this woman? Evelyn pulled a government ID from her jacket pocket and placed it beside the drive. The name read Margot Verne, System Auditor. Issued under authorization from the Secretary of Defense himself. I'm not impersonating her, Evelyn said. I am her. Delaney picked up the card. Even the encrypted holograms were perfect, indistinguishable from a legitimate federal ID. The Secretary. He's part of this? Either that, Evelyn said, or he's being used. Either way, the clearance is real. No red flags. This ID walks straight through every gate. Delaney took a breath, then sat forward with new purpose. So we spring the trap. Exactly, Evelyn replied. Let them think their operation is going as planned, while we turn it inside out. Delaney stood. We'll need a clean team, off-grid, no Washington ties. I've already started forming one, Evelyn said. Lieutenant Kessler. She's green but sharp. Recruited straight from MIT. Background in cryptography. No political entanglements. Delaney nodded. And Sergeant Lowell. His nephew was at the Gibraltar facility. He's got skin in the game. Add him, Evelyn said. We'll need someone who won't flinch when this gets ugly. Delaney was already jotting down notes, compiling a strike team from the ghosts and outliers. No one in D.C. tracked too closely. Then Evelyn said the name that made her look up. Captain Halston. Delaney paused. Really? After what happened upstairs? Evelyn held her gaze. He's shaken, but he followed protocol. He asked questions when others stayed silent. That tells me he hasn't been compromised. The general considered it, then nodded slowly. Fine, but he answers to me. Evelyn cracked the faintest smile. Of course. It's your base. Delaney turned toward the wall-mounted terminal and keyed in a private code. The room dimmed and a red light blinked above the door. Secure mode engaged. Let's move fast, she said. If they get control of Norsec, we don't get a second chance. Evelyn's eyes gleamed in the low light. That's why I came back. You're really putting him on the team? General Delaney asked, her voice laced with disbelief. The same man who just tried to dress you down in front of half the base? Evelyn Shaw gave the faintest nod, her eyes steady. That's exactly why he's useful. His ego makes him predictable. And his thirst for recognition? That kind of ambition doesn't work well with a group. Like Iron Rain, they operate in shadows. He craves the spotlight too much. Delaney tilted her head in reluctant agreement. Fair point. He wouldn't last 10 minutes in a black cell. I'll have the team assembled within the hour. What else do you need? Evelyn's fingers brushed. The grip of the customized golden desert. Eagle holstered at her hip. Just what I already have, General. A weapon, and a purpose. Delaney looked at her old friend for a long, quiet moment. The Evelyn Shaw she remembered from 5 years ago had been a soldier. Sharp, loyal, but still untouched in ways that now felt impossibly distant. This version, standing before her in the dimly lit war room, carried scars that hadn't been there before, some visible, some buried deep. Her posture was heavier, her silence more weighted. Something fundamental had changed. She wasn't just following orders anymore. We are what life makes us, Evelyn said softly, as if sensing her thoughts. And life has shown me exactly how the world really works. Hours later, the two women walked side by side through the lower levels of Raven Rock, their boots echoing along the corridor's steel floors. The war room had emptied. Briefings concluded. The final plans were locked in. The strike team, lean, elite, and hand-picked, had been deployed to rest before the operation commenced at dawn. 5 years under, Delaney finally said, breaking the silence. Undercover. Off the grid. Watching the enemy breathe down your neck. Was it worth it? Evelyn didn't answer right away. She looked straight ahead, her jaw set. We'll find out soon enough. What they want with Norsec? It's bigger than just a platform, isn't it? Evelyn nodded. They want control, yes, but not just of weapons. They're targeting systems, trust, infrastructure. Norsec is the lever. But the real plan, it's what comes after. Delaney stopped walking. What happens if we fail? Evelyn turned to her, calm but resolute. We won't. A pause, then softer. The team's solid. Lieutenant Kessler's already flagged. 3 back-end, access points to Norsec's neural net that even I hadn't spotted. She reminds me of you, back in the early days. Delaney gave a sad smile. Brilliant, driven, still believes in things. Let's hope she stays that way, Evelyn said, her voice nearly a whisper. Idealism doesn't usually survive first contact. They rounded a corner and entered a wing of the complex. Rarely seen by outsiders, The memorial corridor. The walls were lined with bronze plaques, each engraved with the names of intelligence operatives who had died in the shadows. No headlines, no funerals. These walls were all they got. Evelyn's steps slowed. She and Delaney stopped before one particular plaque, half lit by the low amber glow of the overhead lights. The name etched into the metal read, Captain Evelyn M. Shaw, Gibraltar Extraction, presumed KIA. Delaney traced the letters with her fingertip. Should we take it down? Evelyn stared at the plaque, her own name frozen in bronze next to heroes and ghosts. She shook her head slowly. Not yet. That woman died out there. And the one who came back? Delaney asked gently. Evelyn's hand found its way to the golden desert eagle again. The one who came back finishes what she starts. The weapon gleamed faintly in the soft light, its polished surface catching the names of the fallen, like reflections in a quiet river. For 5 years, it had stayed buried, like her, waiting for this moment to resurface. Not for revenge, but for resolution. Delaney exhaled slowly, then said, I read the after-action reports from Gibraltar. None of it made sense. 14 armed hostage takers, 38 civilians extracted. One operative, you. Evelyn didn't flinch. No one believed it. But I did. I had to make it believable, she said. The only way to disappear was to make the world believe I never walked away. The reports were incomplete, Evelyn said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of intent, not oversight. Because of the leak? General Delaney asked, her brow tightening. Evelyn turned to face her, stopping in the dim corridor lined with bronze memorials. Because of what I uncovered inside that embassy, she corrected. The hostage situation wasn't what it looked like. It was staged. A live trial run orchestrated by operatives buried deep within our own government. They wanted to see if they could simulate a crisis severe enough to trigger sweeping national security reforms without anyone asking too many questions. Delaney blinked. You're saying they were willing to sacrifice innocent lives for a political test? Not willing, Evelyn said coldly. Eager. Her voice dropped, the air around them still. Each hostage had been carefully selected. Every one of them had access to information that could have exposed early traces of Project Shattered Mirror. The mercenaries weren't terrorists. They were contractors, sent in to eliminate witnesses under the guise of a chaotic, international crisis. Delaney stared at her. And when you figured it out, I changed the mission, Evelyn said simply. We were supposed to extract only the top 3 assets, quiet, surgical. I went loud. I saved everyone. I made it impossible for them to bury it. I turned it into legend, something too public to erase. And that's why they tried to kill you in Tangier, Delaney murmured. You were never supposed to survive Gibraltar. Never supposed to know what it really was. Exactly, Evelyn nodded. But their mistake gave me a door out. It gave me the freedom to disappear, to build a new identity, and to slip inside the organization pulling the strings. They walked further down the corridor, falling into a heavy silence. The bronze plaques lining the wall glimmered under soft amber lights, each one engraved with names of operatives lost in missions that never made the news. It wasn't just a hall. It was a graveyard of ghosts, of secrets. Delaney's voice broke the quiet. Does it ever bother you that your greatest achievement is just a rumor, a whisper passed around by people who weren't even there? Evelyn didn't answer right away. Then she gave a faint smile. Recognition was never the goal. Nora, the people who walked out of that embassy alive, they know. Their families know. That's enough for me. At the end of the hallway, a single empty plaque awaited its next name. A blank space in a hall full of silence, waiting. When this is over, Delaney asked hesitantly, will you come back? Officially? One mission at a time, General, Evelyn replied. Her eyes didn't leave the plaque. Right now, we stop Iron Rain. Delaney nodded, sensing that Evelyn wasn't just avoiding the question. She was saving herself from the weight of it. The team will be waiting in the command center. Captain Halverson was surprised to be included. Good, Evelyn replied. Surprise breeds caution. And right now, caution is more useful than courage. They turned to leave, but Evelyn paused. Her gaze lingered on the wall, on the names of those who never got the second chance she did. 5 years her name had been there. A ghost among the fallen, and part of her wondered if it should stay. Maybe that version of her, the one who believed in clean missions and clear commands and never really made it out. You once said the woman you were died in Gibraltar, Delaney said, watching her. What did you mean? Evelyn's eyes stayed fixed on the wall. Her voice, when it came, was soft. Faith in the system, in the chain of command, in the belief that what we were doing was always right. That died in that embassy. And what came back? Something else, Evelyn said. Something clearer. I see the world for what it is, and not what I wish it to be. I understand that power corrupts, that systems break, that people betray, but I also understand something else. She turned toward Delaney, her voice firm. Individual actions matter. Saving 38 people was worth the fallout. And stopping Iron Rain, it's worth everything that might come next. Delaney studied her, the new lines on her face, the resolve etched into her eyes. The same woman, and not. And after? She asked softly. What comes after for Evelyn Shaw? Evelyn looked back at the blank plaque. I don't know, she admitted. I've been living as someone else for so long, Rachel Monroe said quietly. I'm not even sure that version of me, the one who walked into Caracas 5 years ago, still exists. They moved through the quiet hallway in silence, boots echoing softly against concrete, toward the elevator that would carry them to the command floor. Waiting there were Lieutenant Aaron Maddox, Sergeant Jules Lockhart, and Captain David Halstead, the small, elite unit entrusted, with a mission that could either reveal a conspiracy woven through the highest levels of U.S. defense, or hand control of the nation's most advanced weapons. Platform to a ghost organization named Black Hollow. As the elevator hummed upward, Rachel ran her thumb along the slide of her custom, gold-plated Desert Eagle. Habit now. Part muscle memory, part ritual. In a world of shifting identities and fractured loyalties, that pistol was the one thing that never changed. I've always meant to ask, said General Kate Travers, watching her with a subtle tilt of the head. Why that weapon? You could carry something smaller, less recognizable. Standard issue would draw less attention. Rachel slid the sidearm into its leather holster with practiced ease. It wasn't about attention, she said. It was a reminder. My first handler gave it to me, said, carry this, and you'll never forget who you really are. No matter who they ask you to become. Travers raised an eyebrow. Smart man. He was dead 3 weeks later, Rachel replied, her voice cool and even. Car bomb in Warsaw. We didn't know it back then, but he was one of Black Hollow's first targets. The elevator doors opened onto the command center, a war room glowing with terminals, shifting satellite feeds, and the low murmur of critical decisions being made in real time. Lieutenant Maddox was the first to approach, posture stiff, face determined, nerves just beneath the surface. Ma'am, she reported, we've completed the sweep of the NORSEC access protocols. There are 3 authentication systems just like you projected. Nice work, Lieutenant, Rachel said, her tone calm but firm. And the others? Sergeant Lockhart finished prepping the infiltration kits. Captain Halstead's been reviewing the updated schematics for the NORSEC facility in Colorado. He thinks we may have a backdoor entrance through the geothermal vents. Rachel nodded. Everything was falling into place. Then it's time. At 0900 hours, I walk into NORSEC under the alias Margaret Vaughn for a routine security audit. By 2100, either we bring Black Hollow into the light, or they seize control of every satellite-targeted weapon system. The country has left. No pressure, Travers muttered dryly. For the first time in weeks, Rachel cracked a smile. A real one. It caught a few glances from the operatives stationed nearby. Just another day at the office, General. She stepped forward into the command center's glow, leaving behind the ghosts of the last 5 years, the woman they had mourned, whose name was still etched into a wall of the fallen at Langley. That woman had died, sure, but in her place stood someone harder, leaner, forged in betrayal and refined in silence, someone who had stopped believing in chains of command and started believing in consequences. She reached the planning table where her team was gathered, the Golden Desert Eagle, at her side, catching a sliver of light and throwing it across the steel, surface like a flare in the dark. Her arrival shifted the energy in the room. Eyes lifted, backbone straightened. These weren't just soldiers, they were believers. They knew the stakes, and they were ready to follow her into hell if that's what it took. Each had been chosen not for rank or resume, but because they'd already survived something they weren't supposed to. People who'd looked into the abyss and come back more focused, not broken. The map of NORSEC flickered to life on the central display. Rachel leaned forward. Let's begin, she said. And with that, the final briefing for Operation Broken Lantern was underway.